Apple, because we already mentioned it used to be a $3 trillion stock. But Pete, remember when we used to hear the law of big numbers? Remember when a bunch of idiots on the panels on TV would say, well, the law of large numbers says you don't understand what the law of large numbers is if you thought it had anything to do with stock price, because it doesn't. If they want to get on their high horse and say, well, the law of large numbers, well, so it's still, Pete, about $2.7 trillion, 1.7 trillion higher than when people used to wave that, well, the law of large numbers crap. But they do have second quarter earnings coming after the bell today. We're bracing for, of course, iPhone sales in China coming out less than people expected. Centerpoint has already said sales are going to be down close to 20% in the quarter. And Huawei is just killing it, eating their lunch over in China. But it ain't all about China, is it, Pete?
Right. No, it's not. It starts with the U.S. and what we do here. But I will say this, when it comes to China, that was a growth spot. That's where everybody pointed, right? Where are you going to get growth in Starbucks? Well, in China. Where are you going to get growth for Apple? Over in China. But all that being said, we've had a couple of quarters in a row now, John, where we've had some revenue declines. That's probably a little bit concerning. For sure, I'd say that's concerning. The late moves towards AI, that doesn't mean that Apple hasn't moved towards AI. They're just a little bit behind the others, and it's going to start to move in and be a part of Apple in the not too distant future. But to the idea of it being late, yeah, it is a little bit late. One of the things in 2023 didn't get talked about at all was they made 32 AI acquisitions in 2023. So are they late? Yes. Are they finished because it's too late? No. They've made a lot of moves. Now they've got to implement some of those moves. I would say that today that you're going to probably see the earnings themselves maybe a little bit weaker than expected, maybe. And a lot of that probably mostly due to China. I would say the U.S. numbers probably are going to be decent, if not better than expected. But China is a big part of this whole thing. So that's why I think that can kind of comes up every time we get into this discussion. So it'll be interesting to see how bad was it in China, or was it really not as bad as expected? And I think that's what people will be looking for tonight.
Yeah, and it's always also how much has been priced in, because this is not going to be a surprise.
Right.
So if you look at Apple and you look at where it's been, it's down 5% on the year, and 5% of a nearly $3 trillion company is a stinging loss. Mm-hmm. That is pretty bad, Pete. But then you look at the chart and say, okay, how much has it already come down since this happened? Well, in the case of Apple, it is down, like I say, nearly 10% on the year now. And if you just look at the unusual activity that we've seen, Pete, basically in this quarter, it's basically down from 195 to about 172 right now. Mm-hmm. So didn't that price in a lot of this? That's why we're seeing those bets you see on your screen right here, folks, because Apple bullish call buying 31st of May expiring 175. That's just $3 above where the stock is right now. Remember that when we come back to it next week.
Oh yeah!